Alright, hey, welcome again. This is Mr. Devaney with Algebra 2A. This is properties of real numbers. Okay, properties of real numbers. I'd love to draw it out and just work with all this stuff. But basically, you guys, this stuff, if you're wondering does that really work? It does. It's been vetted and proofized and whatever you want to think and argued about for probably going on 2,000, maybe 3,000 years. So this is one of the more exact stuff. Now, properties of real numbers are pretty unique in that they work for real numbers. They do not work for imaginary numbers, which is what you'll learn a little bit later. Okay, so let's go to real numbers. There we go. So the tables of real numbers. Now I am on Regions Prep. Most of you guys probably recognize this. Okay, and let's go right here. And table of properties. All right, now A, B, and C are going to be real numbers, variables, or algebraic expressions. So this works for any of those. Okay, so the only thing it can't exist are imaginary numbers, hyper imaginary numbers, surreal numbers. I mean, if you're amazed about imaginary numbers, there's a ton more groupings that go even higher. Okay, all right. So property, commutative property of addition is A plus B equals B plus A. This one's pretty simple. You guys know this, but this is called commutative. Okay, commutative property of multiplication, the same thing as addition, as the addition one above it, but instead of with addition, we have multiplication. Okay. Now, commutative, I like to think of it as you're commuting, so you're moving something. So you're moving the numbers around. Okay, so you're instead of A times B, it's B times A now. All right, and if you guys ever wonder, like, oh, will that work? Is that a property? Plug in numbers, like what this is doing over here. Plug in numbers, see if it works. If you get the same thing on both sides, then it is equal. Okay, associative property of addition. Associate is what I like to look at. Associate, I like to associate myself with different people at times. At work, I like to associate with my friends. At home, I like to associate myself with my family. So, for example, this is this guy's friends at work. Then he associates with his friends or his family at home. Okay, so A plus B plus C, and this would be the sum of B plus C is the same as the sum of A plus B plus C. Okay, same thing works with multiplication. Notice how there's all kinds of it's just multiplication or it's just all addition. Okay, distributive property. If you don't know this one, well, you better be making appointments with me a lot. Okay, distributive property. A times B plus C is the same as A times B plus A times C. Where you take this number in front and you move it and you distribute it to these two parts in here. So you're distributing amongst people. Now these ones get people. Additive identity property is where you're adding 0 and you get the same thing. Identity is where you get the same thing. Multiplicative identity is where you multiply and you get the same thing, so you're multiplying by 1. Additive inverse is, an inverse is the opposite in mathematics. Just know that. Okay, so additive inverse is where I add opposites and I get 0. Multiplicative inverse is where I multiply reciprocals and I get 1. Now here's the amazing thing, A cannot be 1, 0. So technically this is the table of properties for all real numbers except for this one step right here, which A cannot be 0. So that's the only time that really pops up and that screws up. 0 property is A times 0 equals 0. Now what you could also include with these properties, and you won't see it during this section, but you could talk about the exponent properties, where x to the a power times x to the b power is x to the a plus b. Okay, those do pop up, but for right now we're just going to focus on the just minor properties of numbers. Okay, and since you guys have already learned this stuff, also include, oh, I'm loving how I'm spelling include today, that's awesome. Also include exponent properties, log properties. Oh, you guys, log properties we'll learn later. So log properties, trig properties, we'll learn those a little bit later. Those are actually called trig identities. Okay. All right. So that's pretty much it for properties of real numbers. You guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you later.